I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And we begin tonight talking about the story that people across the nation are talking about, that people are talking about online. It is the disappearance and death of Gabby Petito. And the one thing that is so striking is when you look at these photos and the life that she was living on Instagram and compare it now to what we are uncovering about what was really happening in that van, what was really happening in her life, it's incredibly sad. It's incredibly tragic. You know, these images that you look at should reflect what her life should have been. Like, life isn't perfect, right? Instagram things are a little more perfect than they are in real life. But when you're 22 years old and you are out there exploring the world, exploring the life, and with someone that you love, it should be what we are seeing here. But we're learning it wasn't. What we are learning, it's more like what we saw on the side of the road in Moab, Utah, when Brian Laundrie, her boyfriend, being interviewed by police because of a call regarding domestic violence. Exactly what happened depends upon who you ask, but it was enough for police to be called and for police to respond. And now we are where we are, folks. Gabby Petito is dead. That has been confirmed. She is the victim of homicide, death at the hands of another. And now Brian Laundrie is gone, hiding somewhere. And today the Sarasota County Sheriff's Underwater Recovery Force, the dive team, was at the Carlton Reserve in Florida. So they're at work trying to find him. We've got this released by the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office today. We continue to respond to requests for mutual aid from neighboring law enforcement agencies and federal partners to confirm, yes, members of our Sheriff's Underwater Recovery Force, SURF, have responded to Carlton Reserve. This in addition to our emergency response team, Air One, and Patrol. SURF team members are divers called upon to search bodies of water for evidence. These highly trained deputies work in the most difficult and challenging environments imaginable. They are on call 24/7, 365. That's where we are tonight. She is dead, the victim of homicide, Gabby Petito, and Brian Laundrie is hiding somewhere. And now they are wondering if maybe he or some evidence of where he's been is in the water in this murky, swampy reserve down in Florida. Let me bring in special guest joining us from Venice, Florida, reporter with our great affiliate WFTS. Julie Salamone is back with us tonight. Julie, thanks for joining us again. What's the latest here, 8:05 Eastern Time? What is the latest in the search for Brian Laundrie?
Well, numerous law enforcement agencies have been out here all day long, and they've been searching this preserve. But law enforcement said about an hour ago that they've concluded their search for the evening. They found nothing inside this preserve. Again, it's 25,000 acres of land with alligators and snakes. But law enforcement saying late tonight that they found no evidence of Brian Laundrie inside this reserve. But they'll be back out here again tomorrow.
You know, the big headline, and I was talking about these dive teams coming in. Do we know what led them to bring in those dive teams? Why they would bring in what the sheriff refers to as the surf team?
Well, it's from my years of experience as a reporter. Sometimes they'll bring in those dive teams to recover a body or to recover evidence. But Northport Police was so quick to point out that they're bringing in these dive teams just as part of the natural search process. This was in no way any indication that they found anything. They're just bringing in these dive teams to search large bodies of water. Law enforcement pointing out that 75% of the land out here is flooded. These are hiking and biking trails flooded because of the rain.
Okay, is the search that we're talking about, is it hyper-focused on any specific area, or are they just kind of working their way through this reserve?
Well, right now, FBI is the lead agency with this investigation, so it's hard to get details now. And Northport police have really been limited with the details they're releasing now. So they have not given us any indication in terms of what part of the park they're focusing on, but I can tell you at each of the entrance points, there's police vehicles blocking that area. Occasionally, maybe you'll see crews coming in and out, but other than that, there's no activity from the perimeter of the park.
Okay. Have Brian's parents or the lawyer that apparently they hired made any more public statements about Brian, about Gabby, about anything?
Well, we still have yet to hear from Brian's parents. They have not released any information publicly. Law enforcement was quick to point out that their communication with Brian Laundrie has been limited and everything has been funneled to that attorney in New York. And at this point, the attorney is not releasing any public statements regarding the search that's going on here at the preserve or giving us any information into where Brian might be.
And one final question I had for you tonight, and I don't know if any information has been released about this, but have investigators said anything about the van that they recovered and the Mustang? Because both seem to be part of this entire investigation. Have they said anything about either one of those vehicles?
One of the first things I saw Northport police do, one of the first things they'd confirmed to me is that they recovered the white van, the van that the couple was traveling in out west. They recovered that van weeks ago. They got a warrant for a hard drive that was located inside the van. But in terms of what was on that hard drive, those details haven't been released. That warrant also pointed out that Brian entered the Northport area around 10:30 in the morning on September 1st. So that was something new we learned. In terms of the Mustang, we still have no details if they found any evidence inside the Mustang. When FBI agents went to the home on Monday to serve that search warrant, they towed that Mustang out of the driveway.
Julie Salomon doing great work, WFTS, down in Florida tonight for us. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, I want to bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, who's also been covering this story for us tonight. Chanley, I really wanted to get into the timeline. When I look at these cases, I think timelines are so important in trying to figure out what happened and why it happened and how it happened. What have you been able to put together for us?
Yeah, I agree with you, Vinny, because timelines can be so telling of when things happen. So I wanted to back up all the way to when this cross-country trek began for Gabby and Brian. According to the search warrant that our local reporter just referred to, that was in mid-June when this trek began from Long Island, New York. The goal going to Oregon. So we know that August 12th, that's really the first time we hear about this domestic dispute. We see that body cam video. We hear the 911 call between the domestic dispute between Brian and Gabby in Moab, Utah. August 27th, that's that odd text referred to in the search warrant affidavit that the mother of Gabby was concerned about because she called her grandfather by his first name, Stan. That was odd to her. Then we move on to September 1st. Brian returns home to Florida without Gabby in her white van. September 11th, that's when the Petito family filed the missing person report. September 12th, that's when Brian is last seen by family members last Tuesday. He hasn't been seen since. September 14th, that's when his family that's when Gabby's white van was searched. That's when they find that hard drive. They want more information from that hard drive. That's September 17th. That's when Brian's parents finally speak to police, tell him where they know him to last be seen. September 18th, that's the Florida Nature Preserve search started. Now, September 19th, we know Gabby Petito's remains were found in Wyoming. September 20th, the FBI searched the Laundrie home all day long, taking out box after box of potential evidence. September 21st, that's the autopsy. We know now confirmed that was Gabby Petito, recovered in Wyoming. The search for Brian continued at that nature reserve. And today, day 4, an extensive search, as you mentioned, of that nature reserve, producing nothing so far. And Vinny, authorities saying that they will continue a similar plan tomorrow, day 5, on the search for Brian Laundrie.
Okay. You know, I look at all these dates and you know, a couple of them really jump out to me, but that 27th, that August 27th, because that's also the date that the YouTubers, the Red, White, and Bethune YouTubers who see the van on the side of the road. That's the date that they see the van there. So I'm wondering how they're going to be able to put together and try to figure out when she died, right? When this homicide occurred. Still no word on that, right? They have not pinpointed a date on that yet.
No, very tight-lipped investigation, holding everything close to the vest right now as far as trying to solve what happened to Gabby, when it happened, but that's a very telling moment, the 27th. There's also reportedly on the 29th a couple who claims to have given Brian Laundrie a ride as he was hitchhiking. Authorities today even indicating that that's plausible. So a lot of unanswered questions still tonight, Vinny, on what these answers may be, but that timeline does help give us a big picture view of what has happened over the last several weeks.
Absolutely. Chanley Painter, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Let's bring in our think tank tonight. Joining us in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy, in Los Angeles, California, former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani, and in Phoenix, Arizona, the attorney who represented Jodi Arias, author of the book series Trapped with Ms. Arias, Kirk Nurmi, is with us. Okay. Eklund Mercy, you know, a couple of these dates really jump out, but let's start with the search for Brian Laundrie. Parents last see him on the 12th. They decided to tell police on the 17th. I mean, that's 5 days. That's at least 5 days that he had a head start to go wherever he wanted to go.
Let's stop. Let's even go further back. Let's talk about how the cops stopped him with the domestic violence situation, and he wasn't looking for bond, and she wasn't talking to a victim's advocate. The issue is that at the stop, when she was crying and she was seeming like a victim of domestic violence, police officers should have taken her in to custody and done a wellness check, and that was not done. So the ball was dropped early, and it was dropped while she was still alive. So the fact that Brian was able to come back, get an attorney, talk to his family, and have breakfast when police officers were still looking we're still looking for Gabby is also an issue. So I think from all the way from the moment that police were involved and did not take this girl to safety, that's the problem for me.
Well, Nima Rahmani, from your perspective, looking at the timeline, what do you think is going to be a key date here? Is it the 12th, this domestic dispute? Is it this odd text that is sent on the 27th, the spotting of the van on the 27th? Is it him coming back alone on the 1st? Is it the parents not, waiting 5 days to report him missing when he says he's going to go take a hike?
Vinny, my mind is blown. Eklund Mercy wants someone arrested for domestic violence, but we know why, because now we know he's likely a murderer. But I mean, all those dates are important. When you leave with your fiance to go on a cross-country trip and you come back without her, I mean, that's a problem. And when you invoke, when law enforcement wants to ask you questions, that's a problem. And when your parents potentially cover up and obstruct justice, accessory after the fact. I mean, I don't want to accuse anyone of anything yet, but that timeline is very important, and they may have given him a head start. I mean, the only real reason we think he may be in the preserve is because the parents and the family attorney has told them that, but law enforcement may be on a wild goose chase. Hopefully they have other evidence that ties Laundrie to that preserve, because otherwise they may be looking in the completely wrong area, and ultimately he's got to be the prime suspect because he's either a murderer, he was also murdered, or he killed himself. Or really, the most likely scenario is that he's on the run and he got a huge head start with the help of his family.
Kirk, let me ask you about the parents. We've been talking about this a lot, and to me it's not super clear. Hypothetically, if he said to the parents something that puts him with Gabby at the moment that she dies, right? Do they have to reveal that, or can they invoke the right to remain silent?
Well, nobody has an obligation to talk to the police, right? But they have an affirmative duty not to lie to the police. And like Eklund says,
Well, wait,
like
okay,
Nemus,
I got that. You don't have to talk to him. You can't lie. But how about in the middle, which is, I'm not going to answer your questions?
well, that's not talking to him. I don't think that's the middle ground. That's just choosing not to talk to him. And that is everyone's right to do that. But I think what's going to, like Nima, I'm not willing to cast aspersions on him yet. I think when the digital timeline starts to fill in, then we can zero in and see whether or not these parents created a diversion and gave their son a head start to escape the authorities. I think that's where it begins, because these dates that you listed are all important. But I think when we get the digital footprint, that's going to turn those dates and that timeline into a story that makes a little more sense. And then we can really get a better grasp of what the parents did or didn't do in this case, because they may just be repeating lies that he told them.
Now, let's get real for just a second, right? I mean, does everyone agree with me that he comes home by himself? Gabby had been living there. The parents likely asked, "Where's Gabby?" And then he has to say something. Whatever he said prompted them to call an attorney. So it just seems to me that it's not a leap to say that they have information here, Eklund.
But here's the thing: the officer, law enforcement had information. If they left together and one came back without the other one, and the other one is missing, and the girl is missing, and you have the guy who's lawyered up, I think you have enough to ask him some questions. And they had that opportunity, and they dropped the ball just because he has an attorney.
No, when the police
Just
went to the
because he
house,
has an
the
attorney.
police went into their pocket. I mean, the parents went into their pocket, handed them the card of the name of the attorney. They never had an opportunity to question him.
And at that point, they have arrest powers. They had some probable cause that some things was afoot. If the woman went with him, Gabby went with him and did not come back, that is probable cause that something had happened, because she was supposed to come back. At that point, officers could have questioned them with his attorney present. I wish my card had that much power to stop law enforcement, but it doesn't. They could have proceeded. He was there. They knew where he was. Now they're doing the manhunt after the fact. That's backwards to me.
All right. We'll continue to talk about this throughout the program.